Live Rise. This is a scientific, truth-revealing conversation for most of my white brothers and sisters. My black brothers and sisters can tune into because you probably don't know this, and this is probably going to give you some understanding on a lot of black there is. All right, so let's tap into another little bill real quick. This ain't for the faint of minds neither, so if you believe in certain realities, religions, or whatever, don't come here, because what I'm going to say going to hurt a lot of feelings, or it might liberate you. All right, first and foremost, I was talking to my last bill about the fact that racism can't even be real. What you got to understand is, for the most part, everybody on this planet is black. Everybody on this planet is black, okay? And the reason why scientists and people of power like to focus on DNA and how many strains of DNA and all of this, and the reason why that one white guy was talking about everybody comes from monkeys and his disrespectful ass, like the way he looked at it, it was just so twisted, you know what I mean? Let me give you some clarity. Every single being that's created on this plane of existence, okay, is black. If you want to put a term on color or children of sun or melanated, right? We are all melanated. What happens when the creation comes from where it first starts? Now you have to understand, we're not talking about it coming from the womb, like from the mother. We're talking about the actual creation itself. So when the actual creation started itself, you know, from the divine pretenses that was going to replicate from that point to populate the plane of existence, each set of individuals that were created had to sit within a certain area in Africa to become complete. This is why between the Caucasians and the people of color here on the earth, you have a big jump as far as DNA. You have from the Caucasians having a 6 and most people of color, or all people of color, having a 9 on a DNA scale. Monkeys and everything under that is 5, 4, 3, 2, and so forth and on. This is DNA strands. This is your capabilities. This is how you understand. This is how you comprehend. And the reason why this is super important, because there's a place in Kenya where everybody in their first right, like you can trace every culture back to that area from their existence. Now, they might have replicated in other areas, like they might have migrated to this other country or moved over here and kept replicating at that point. But when they first stepped foot to breathe air, they stayed around this area in Kenya. And this area is particularly, it speaks about being the womb. So the old sciences, the old religions, the old purposes, the old narratives and all this shit from back in the day, they speak about how the last creation saw that it was just the last. So this is how you get the story of I'm the beginning and the last should be first and all this, right? This is where the last should be first it comes from. This is where the false hatred for, you know, other cultures of color come from. This is where the religion, and this is where everything that has a standpoint to be tied into anything comes from. It's because you have a group of people that were actually the last creation to replicate. And if they had stayed around this area in Africa long enough, they would have been black as well, or brown, or people of color, NAGA, whatever you want to call us, people of color, children of the sun. You would have produced a higher level of melanin as well. But because that didn't happen, and the stories tell you that you were guided out by something else that had love for you, someone else that had love for you, you want to put Moses' name on it, you want to put whoever's name on it. Whoever guided you from where you were in Kenya to the mountains in the Caucasus Mountains and allowed you to lock yourself in that cave to stabilize that DNA gene. That has nothing to do with the culture of people. That has everything to do with the decision of the first one that was like you. The hate, the affinity, wanting to find out how to keep it like that. And it was like, you don't really want to do that because it's not going to help you. This is a plane of existence for people of the sun. Well, they had another plan. They had a plan to be opposite against everything. This is how we get the number 3, 6, and 9. That's where 3, 6, and 9 come from. They used the 3 to get the 6, ultimately being a 9. These are the ways of the universe. It skips numbers that way. So they settled in the middle. They settled in the middle. And most Caucasians think that you have a religion or somebody told you that black people was this or that. No, the only reason why all of this shit has any semantics spread around like butter and giving you all these different attributes to look through is because of the simple fact of one reason, just one reason, one simple reason, that you were the last one and you had nothing coming behind you. You had to learn how to reproduce. There was nothing coming behind you. You couldn't reproduce on the highest scale of melanin here for this. So you went to do it in an opposite direction, which is bringing actual detriment to the culture in itself. Because the higher the sun raises, the higher the frequency of the whole universe, the planet itself, all life forces, their DNA is rising. So eventually a DNA level of a 6 is not going to be able to obtain the frequency of foods, light, and everything else that's rising past that. This is going into a 9. We're going to rise past a 9 to a 12, 13, so forth and on. You know what I'm saying? Like it's 3, 6, 9. There's a jump to 3s. So we're going from 9 to 12, 12 to 15. You see what I'm saying? 15 to 18. You know what I'm saying? See how it goes to 6 to 9. It keeps staying 3, 6, 9 no matter what. 12 is 3/4. You know what I'm saying? 15, that's 1 and 5 is 6. 18, that's 9. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't make this up. It's just what it is. You can find 3, 6, 9 in everything. But the ratio of science, it wasn't even put to that discretion. Nobody wants to say, well, you know what? Our forefathers fucked up. The reason why we hate is because they made a mistake. The reason why we hate is because they wanted to go over here and because they looked at everything that came before them as like, we ain't like them. They was like, nah, you ain't like us now, but it was something like you. But they changed us. That's because your DNA rise. Nobody had that conversation back in the day. Nobody had that level of camaraderie to explain. Nobody could say, well, you know what? 1 million, 2, 3 million years that went by. And yeah, we might have came out like that. Green, blue, whatever color. But we changed into this because we stayed long enough to get the universal vitamins and frequency to rise your DNA to where you could be suitable on this plane of existence. That didn't happen for the Caucasian culture. Period. It just didn't happen for them. You're not this, you're not that. And the reason why they come out with, you know, the Africans even had it that you were the devil or you were like all the dark evil of it's because of that culture. When they came, they went against the process of divinity. Divinity was like being in the oven. So if I'm cooking bread and the bread is done, I take it out. It's nice and golden brown. The other bread still got to go in. If that bread get up and start growing legs and its doughy self, all soft and doughy, and say, I'm going up here. I'll freeze in the mountains and stay stable. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta think about this shit. And then you come out of the mountains like, I don't know, 500 years after that, 1,000 years after that. You know what I'm saying? Devouring your own people. Eating your own flesh. Becoming a cannibal. Ultimately signing your death. Because there's a germ that comes with eating flesh. So everything that had to be done to sustain your culture. To sustain your culture from the beginning creation to the point where you ended up in the Caucasus Mountains to being released from that to come back to form Greece, Rome, and all this other shit. Europe. Before you got to do that, it was a decision made to take you away from the sun. This is how you get Masons and Freemasons. Masons and Masons. My son and free my sons. This is where it comes from. Your some stayed around the mom's womb, the nipple. Some didn't. They freed themselves from it. And they called that liberation. They called that growth. And this is where you had the ideal of, the Germans back in the day or whatever wanting to be, the master race. This is where this concept came from. This is how they developed it. Oh, we're going to do this with our people and we're just going to be separate. How can you be separate when your purpose was to be a part? It don't matter if you mold out. If you mold out, you still was a moldy ass apple. Like, it don't matter how you cut it, you still apple. And that's why we got so many familiarities. This is why so many people in the Caucasian communities that have an affinity for things that melanated people do. This is why it's so much of a snatch and run. This is why it's so much of a dislike between the two, is because you are from that. Your spirit is crying out for you to go to a certain place to where you can develop this spirituality, because this is who you were supposed to be. You wasn't supposed to be the opposite. And that was a spell that put you in that position, but I ain't going to even hold you. I'm just trying to show you something. And everything I'm saying is facts. You can go look it up. They tell you about this. They tell you about it. So some people may take this personal. Some people may get an ear and listen. Just know it's love. Trying to show you something so where maybe you can set your family in the right motion. You already know the vibes. NAGA.